Judge Amy Coney Barrett has only been a federal judge for a few years. She has spent most of her career as a law professor at Notre Dame Law School. She was instrumental in helping the first blind woman to become a clerk for a Supreme Court justice. Her name is Laura Wolk, and she joins us now. Laura, great to have you with us.
Great to be with you, Lana. Thank you.
So you have a very personal tie to Judge Barrett. She was a mentor of yours while you were at Notre Dame. Tell us about your experience with her and what our viewers might not know about the new Supreme Court nominee.
Sure. So basically, I would echo everything that President Trump said in his nomination speech, as well as the quotes that he gave from almost every single person who has ever worked with Judge Barrett in any capacity, all of her clerks at the court and all of her colleagues at the Notre Dame faculty, and any student that you would talk to who has ever had her as a professor. She is an amazing mix of a brilliant person who is also extraordinarily warm and caring and giving. And as her student and then later her mentor, I got to see that firsthand. It isn't often the case that you meet someone who is just astonishingly intelligent the second you begin talking to her. Noah Feldman actually put it this way, that as a co-clerk with her, it was very obvious that she was the smartest person in the room. And that's the truth. Anyone who has interacted with Judge Barrett knows the feeling that she definitely comes across as the smartest person in the room. But as a professor, she didn't, that never stood in the way of her relationships with her students. And she was able to mix that, her teaching ability with a warmth and an approachability that allowed me as a first semester law student, as well as many other students that I had the pleasure of attending Notre Dame with, to go to her, whether it was for general classroom advice if we were actually struggling with the material that she or another professor was teaching, but also things that had nothing to do with the classroom setting, just life struggles or adjusting to law school or any of, and even family issues. Judge Barrett, in her acceptance speech tonight, made the statement that her life is filled with relationships, and I couldn't agree with that more. Those of us who have been blessed to be her students.
I want to ask you about that, Laura.
Sure.
Because you became the first blind woman to serve as a clerk for a Supreme Court justice when Clarence Thomas brought you on board. I'm hoping you can tell our viewers a little bit about how Judge Barrett, or Professor Barrett as you knew her, supported you on that path.
Absolutely. So she was very instrumental in my development as a legal writer and a thinker. I took an upper-level seminar with her called Statutory Interpretation, which is, as the name implies, just goes through all of the different schools of thought and philosophies that exist about how to interpret statutory text. And so in that process, in taking that class, you write a lengthy scholarly paper, and I worked with her extensively. So she really helped me to hone my writing and my research and analytical skills, all of which are absolutely necessary in order to be a successful law clerk. But outside of the classroom, she also served as a really indispensable mentor to me. It's a pretty open secret that there are far too few women in the legal profession, especially as one works her way up the career ladder toward partnership tracks and things like that. Professor Barrett, for me, was the paragon example of a strong, independent woman who I could talk to, who I could learn from, who could give me the confidence and the sort of soft skills that you need in order to walk into a room knowing that others might be trying to discount you as a woman. And as you mentioned, on top of that, I also am completely blind. So on top of being a woman, I also have a disability. So that tendency toward discrimination and marginalization is actually twofold when it applies to me. And in Professor Barrett, I found a complete champion. She was a fervent advocate for me, not just, in terms of helping me to meet people and helping me to develop my skills, but also, speaking to me one-on-one and giving me advice and counsel that she had learned herself the hard way by also being a woman, coming through being a Supreme Court clerk and working at a firm and then trying to become a professor. So I would say that both intellectually, but also personally, I really learned so much from Professor Barrett and continue to learn from her as a judge.
Well, Laura, your story is a remarkable one, and it's obvious what esteem you hold Judge Barrett in. But she is walking into a contentious confirmation process. In addition, not only to the questions about the election looming large, Judge Barrett has been public with some of her thoughts on abortion and other hot-button issues. She's also shown a willingness to overturn precedent. What do you say to people who are concerned about locking in a very conservative majority for years to come and potentially the possibility of overturning abortion rights or abortion access in this country?
Right. So I actually would take issue with using the label conservative. I think the label conservative and progressive or liberal or whatever labels that we tend to use do not map onto judging. And there are good reasons for that. Judge Barrett has made very clear, she made it clear in her Senate testimony, and she made it clear in her speech tonight that judges are not policymakers. So to use sort of political labels that map onto policy preferences is not relevant or appropriate when we're speaking about, or it's not apt, I should say, when we're speaking about judging. And so, what I think about Judge Barrett as a judicial nominee and as a potential justice is that she is a woman of her word, and she has given the American people her word, and she has given the Senate her word, and her word is that she intends to judge according to neutral principles, to be guided by the text of a statute or the Constitution, to be guided by neutral and objective tools to the best of her ability. And I can say from personal experience, as have so many of her former colleagues and students, that she is an honest and upright woman of her word. And so when she tells the American people that, we ought to believe her.
I understand your point, Laura, that justices ought to be independent, but she is walking into a political process in which President Trump has assured voters that he intends to appoint conservative judges. I know that she would describe herself as an originalist and that is perhaps more apt. But are you saying that you think that if she's appointed and confirmed to the Supreme Court, that conservative voters shouldn't necessarily count on her making decisions on legal cases that are necessarily aligned with conservative voters?
I would absolutely not speculate an answer to that question. What I can say is that Judge Barrett has told us that her job as a judge is to answer legal questions, all legal questions, not just hot button legal questions, but any legal question that arises in any case. And that is what I expect her to do. So what I expect Justice Barrett to do, if the Senate chooses to confirm her, is to do exactly what I saw her do in the classroom, to look at a legal problem, to examine it from every angle, to give each argument and the counter argument the fairest shake it can possibly get, to think about it critically, deeply, and attentively, and to come to the conclusion that she feels is dictated by the text. And so it's not tied to an issue, it's her philosophy, and that's what I expect from her.
All right, Laura, assuming that Barrett is in fact confirmed, I'm wondering if you can tell us how she'll change the dynamics among the justices and what qualities she brings to the Supreme Court.
Sure. I think in terms of qualities, she is a very warm and friendly person. I think that she will bring that attitude and that collegiality, that friendliness to the court. I have no doubt about that. Again, in terms of dynamics, I couldn't possibly speculate on that. But I have no doubt that as a member of every institution that she's been a part of, that she will only make it a better place and a smarter and a friendlier place.
Anything you think our viewers will be surprised to know about Judge Barrett, who you know so well?
I suppose, you know, I think the thing that has not been talked about her very often is she's a very funny person. One of the ways that she is quite disarming is she's very funny inside and outside the classroom. And so I do hope that if the Senate does choose to confirm and go through with the hearing, that the American people will get to see a bit of that side of her.
All right, Laura Wolk, a trailblazer in your own right. I'm so glad that you joined us. Thank you.
Thanks very much.